everyone, welcome to the Imagine Crafts YouTube channel. My name is Lynn, or LV Handcrafted, here on YouTube, and today I am going to do a technique that I just learned. It's called toilet paper casting. Yep, I am going to be playing with toilet paper. You heard correctly. So I am starting off with a background stamp that is 6x6. It is a red rubber stamp, but you can use clear stamps if you'd like. And I'm inking it just direct to the stamp with Brilliance ink and Versacolor. They are a similar color, but I wanted to use the two just to see the difference because Brilliance ink should have a bit of a shimmer and shine to it. And I'm using the pouncer just to kind of work that ink all the way around and make sure that it's covering the design. And especially since I went direct to the stamp with my ink pad, I didn't want to get too close and contaminate my inks, so the dauber helps with that as well. And now what I'm doing is starting to create my cast. So the reason why this is called casting is, think about if you've ever broken an arm or a leg and you needed to have a cast put on. It's essentially a lot of layers, in this case toilet paper, as opposed to what they use for casts. And the only difference is that we are not using a binder or an adhesive in between layers. All we're using is just plain water. I'm using distilled water, so it's nice and clean and it doesn't trap any bacteria or anything in between these layers. The stamp is actually being used as a mold, so you can use anything that has some dimension to it, because as we build up our casting here, I'm using this stiff brush. It's a stencil brush. All the bristles are super stiff, and that's going to help me pounce over the toilet paper and really push that paper into all of the grooves, into the design of the stamp. And that's why I like to use rubber, because I feel like it can hold up under the pressure that I use to pounce with. And I found with my my stencil brush, because it's flat, it helps to give it like a little bit of a wiggle, just not to pounce directly up and down, but pounce and then wiggle it around a little, because it's going to further help push that toilet paper into all the grooves. The first 2 or 3 layers of toilet paper that I add, I use a lot of water. And don't worry if it tears or anything like that. It's okay. We're going to be using so many layers, tears won't really matter. But what will matter is getting the paper sufficiently wet so that it's more malleable and will more easily get pushed into all of those recesses of whatever you're using as your mold. And the end result is that you'll get a much more crisp, well-defined design when your cast is complete. Towards the end, when you've built up quite a few layers, you can almost start to just rely on the brayer, because you will have filled in all of those grooves, and it's never gonna, your aim isn't to get it completely level, but there's just less that you need to do in order to push it into those grooves, and less impact a lot of pressure is going to have also, because now we're working towards the bottom of the design and it's should be fairly thick. Now I used 2-ply toilet paper and I did separate it so that it is just easier. Again, the thinner your toilet paper is, the easier it is going to be to mold, to take the form of that mold. And you can start to release this right away. You don't have to wait for it to dry. And look at that. See how beautiful that is? And it's so easy to do as well. You get all of that detail. And essentially what we've done is turn our stamp into an embossing folder, because it does deboss the design. That is, the design is now recessed into the paper, but it's wonderful to get another use out of our stamps now, so that you can get all of this texture, and it's just really fun to do. I'm using my guillotine to kind of slice through this. Now you want to make sure you have a really sharp blade. You could probably do this with maybe like a craft knife and steel ruler, but I like my guillotine for this because I can take quick cuts through it and it will trim it down nice. It's nice and sharp, and I think that's going to be the key to cut through this. Not because it is going to be tough to cut through, but more because this is so soft. And as I mentioned, all of the layers that we used when we built up the cast, they're not held together by any sort of binder or adhesive, so they might have a tendency to start to separate a little bit. And I haven't tried cutting one of these with, say, a V-blade or a trimmer, but you can play around maybe with some scraps and see what works and what doesn't. But and you can maybe die cut from it, see if that works too. I just haven't tried it. But what I did want to do is I wanted a little bit of a border all the way around the panel that I cut down. So this is an A2 size card base that I just inked with that same Brilliance ink along all four edges. So that way I don't have to find the perfect cardstock to match. And I inked around my panel as well, just to clearly define those borders. Then I decided this is snow themed, so maybe adding a bit of that sparkle would be nice. So I gently brushed with Versamark ink. It's a nice clear sticky ink, the top of my panel here, and I am generously sprinkling some sparkle embossed powder. Sparkle embossed powder is, I think at the base of it, has a clear base with some glitter mixed in, and the glitter is what gives it that shine that is subtle. So just like if you caught snow, sunlight hitting snow, especially fresh fallen snow, there's maybe that glisten that you see. That's the look I was hoping to get. Now with any clear embossed powder, if you ink that over colored ink or panel, it's going to have the effect of darkening. And you can see as I dry this, it starts to darken some of that blue, which I think is great. It just adds even more contrast, and when you catch this in the right lighting, it has that nice sparkly finish, just that nice subtle glisten like snow would. What I would be careful of is applying too much heat. So I had my heat on low as I was doing that, and I was trying to move it around really quickly. Not how you would normally melt your embossed powder, but important so that you don't actually separate your toilet paper casting too much. I got a little bit of separation around the edges. And so I was attempting to just run a little bit of glue with my finger down the edge of my cast here, my panel. I didn't think that was enough, so I'm going to add a small bead of glue all the way around all four edges. And the goal of this is to almost seal in the outer edges, because I think if it starts to separate, it will probably start there. And with just like a bit of scrap paper, I'm going to run that down all four edges, really push that glue in, clean up that edge, and it should dry completely clear, so it's not going to be visible, but I just want it to be spread into the toilet paper. And as I burnish, I don't want to lose all of that texture and form that we created, but right around the edges, I do push hard just to make sure that that outer edge is sealed in a sense. And so I did push pretty firmly there. Now, to attach my sentiment, I'm using a 3D glue gel because there's so much texture underneath there that I want that glue. I'm not looking to mention. I want the sentiment to actually be flush with the top of my panel, but it's so recessed. There's so many deep spots in there. I just want that 3D glue so that it can really sink into that debossed design, and that way make more firm contact with the panel and be a more secure hold. So look at all of that beautiful texture from a stamp, and it's raised. It feels really lovely to the touch because it's toilet paper and it's nice soft toilet paper. So this is such a fun technique, really easy to do, but more importantly, gives your stamps a new purpose in your craft room. And now you can look at your stamps in a different way to see what would make a lovely debossed design, so that you can now not just stamp a flat image, but actually create a more dimensional or debossed panel for your cards or any type of project that you're creating. Because these panels are nice and flexible, you could mold them, you could shape them even further for 3D projects even. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you'll give this technique a try, and let me know in the comments below if you have done this before or if you try it. I hope you do share. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.